Hi, everybody, and welcome back to RHAP's coverage of The Amazing Race 38. It is officially in the can, but we are not kicking the can down the road just yet. We have to talk about this massive crossover season. The finale has officially aired. Winners have been crowned. And so we thought it'd only be proper to talk to somebody who knows the feeling of being an Amazing Race winner firsthand. She is, of course, one of the standouts and champions of The Amazing Race 29. And if you haven't checked out all of her great coverage of The Amazing Race with Bryce Isaiah over on the Purple Pants podcast, what are you doing with yourself? Regardless, I'm thrilled to be talking with her today. Say hi to Brooke Camhi.
Hello, how are you? That's
I'm
a very
doing
nice intro. I appreciate it.
Of course. Brooke, I know it's been a fun celebratory week. You've had a lot of friends in the racing family to welcome them to, the homestead, obviously a finale that aired in New York City. How do you feel
Yes.
getting to welcome in a new group of racers every single season?
Oh, it's so fun. Honestly, there's nothing better than, well, also nothing worse. Now I'm thinking it's a double-edged sword. You to watch the season after your season and then to go, oh, I could have, why didn't this, we had to climb a lot of stairs. They get to, I don't know, play the drums. I'm like, theirs is better. But then you get to, everybody has that feeling. And the people who came after you get to watch them experience the same thing. And I've now had the joy of watching, Carson and Jack experience this season, and Ricky and Sacer experience that season, and Greg and John experience that season. Like it goes back. And so it's pretty cool to not only get to meet new people, but get to watch the people who came after you live out the following season, which is really fun.
Well, Brooke, we're going to use this opportunity to, I think, do a lot of navel gazing, a lot of overall talk about
Okay.
what this season of The Amazing Race was from beginning to end. I mean, the first
All
couple
right.
questions I have to ask are, and, forgive me if these are questions that you have answered throughout your great coverage alongside Bryce on the Purple Pants podcast, but bears restating. Let's talk about your anticipation going into this season. Are
I
you,
thought it
or
was going to be horrible.
well, yeah, I want to hear more about that because, I don't know what your experience level. I know you obviously have hung out with a lot of Big Brother people, but I didn't know your familiarity with the show. And I guess based on that concept, what did you make of the theme before coming in?
Okay. So for me, Amazing Race, I've seen every episode multiple times. Survivor, I've seen, I think, every episode, but maybe just some of the seasons, most of the seasons once. Big Brother, I've seen a handful of seasons, but certainly not all of them. So I was aware or had watched, well, since a lot of the people came from the last few seasons, most of these people, but there were some people that I wasn't familiar with. And so it was a little weird to sort of like know some, but not know others. Um, I had no I had hopes but no expectations because then I heard it was all in Europe and I was like, oh, it's going to be not so great. But I will say that it really exceeded my low expectations. I actually thought it turned into a really fun season. It was way too kumbaya for my liking, but other than that, I think that it was just the people are great, the characters are great. The route was, I think, about as great as you could make it on the understanding that you were just staying, in continental Europe. And yeah, I think overall it turned out to be it's way better than some of there are some seasons out there that I would, it's not the bottom tier for me, or not the, it's not the bottom of the bottom. I think it was good. And some of these people are just so wonderfully nice that it made it better. There wasn't anyone you love to hate.
Yeah, I think whether or not you liked this season overall, I think a general consensus opinion is especially at the prospect of this, especially those who don't watch Big Brother, I do think it outkicked its coverage. I think, the idea of, hey, let's bring on this notable name to reality TV fans alongside a loved one worked out really well
Mm-hmm.
because we got to see the alumni in a brand new light, in a more familiar light, alongside someone who is more familiar to them rather than playing with a bunch of strangers in a house. And then we got to meet some of these fantastic loved ones as well and see them
Who,
become.
by the way, were like, some of the loved ones were the standout of the team. I'm so into some of these. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just used
No,
to
name name
interrupting. I'm
name.
used to interrupting Bryce. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Listen, it's totally fine. But I do think that that concept, I think what people thought would be the worst parts of the season, to be honest, which is the cast, was great. I don't think we
Mm,
got a lot of like big brothery stereotypical energy out of
No.
these alumni. I mean, I feel like there were some times when they would make quips to the camera, but if anything, I would rather have that sort of brand of Big Brother eke into the Amazing Race than having people just be so exhausted and stock still that they clam up in front of the camera. More so, I think what people take issue with and what I had more of an issue with was, ironically enough, more of the amazing racy elements of this Amazing Race season.
Yeah, yeah. I think that well, so I don't have a problem with alliances on the Amazing Race. We had an alliance on the Amazing Race with London and Logan and promised each other to always just keep each other out of the bottom. Do whatever you can to make sure that we survive, hopefully till the end. Um, it hurt me a little bit because one of the teams didn't talk to me for quite some time, but that's okay. It happens. It's a game, and we're cool now. Anyway, so I don't mind alliances. I do feel that it was like a little. I personally don't think I would ever step out of the way for somebody to finish a leg in front of me. And we've spoken to Jag and Jazz. We did an interview with them, and it was great. And they had their reasons, and I can sort of see their reasons. But I feel like sometimes it lacked the tiniest little bit of that competitive spirit in sort of helping some of the other teams along.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could call this out here. This is not a very competitive season of the
No.
Amazing Race. Like, you look at the track record, and not to say that, like, looking at a leaderboard is indicative of a season in and of itself, but the first place finishes this season were represented by the vast majority of two teams, and then one team who got a very nice birthday gift in episode 3. And look, sometimes there are seasons like that. I think back to like season 9, where it was BJ and Tyler and Eric and what's his name, the future winner Eric, Eric and Jeremy.
Oh,
Eric
Jeremy.
And
Jeremy.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
But they were consistently, and that was like an interesting storyline. I think while the surprise of Tucker and Eric being eliminated was exciting, it then did unfortunately lead to perhaps a lack of climacticism in the finale. Now, look, you know as well as anyone that like anything can happen in the final leg, but I don't know. What was your assessment of this finale?
So I love that it was in New York. I kind of wish Izzy and Paige had been in it, because as New Yorkers, I wonder if they would have had a little bit more of an advantage than anybody else. I don't I don't want to be negative. The final task, I think, in theory was excellent. In practice was less so, just a little bit. I love a crossword puzzle. I do it every day. Like, I think a crossword puzzle is a great final task because it doesn't favor the strongest or the fastest. It favors the people who have taken the most notes, remember the most things. And I think that's a really important part of the race. It's not just who's fast, who's strong, it's who's smart. And so the one thing that I would change about that is when you press the button, I didn't like that it told you which squares were wrong. I wish it had just said wrong, and you had to go back and figure it out yourself. And I think if that had been the case, I mean, Jag and Jazz they only had the Z's switch, but I'm wondering if that had been the case and they would have started overthinking it, if the gap between first and second place wouldn't have been smushed a bunch.
Yeah, I love that because, again, that's what we expect from a typical final task, right? Which is like the mindfuck aspect of like, okay, I got something wrong, but what did I get wrong? How much did I get wrong? And sometimes it's the exact opposite reactions where it's like, oh, I thought I had to fix so much, but I only need to fix one thing, or oh, I only need to fix one thing, but you have to fix a lot. I mean, again, I think about like season 35 being the most recent example where like Joel and Garrett were right there with Greg and John. Yeah, but the kayaks, and you know, had a couple of mistakes not been made, they could have been the winners. And so, look, I talked about this on the recap.
It happens a lot though, right? Like it happened, Joel and Garrett. It happened, oh my God, Henry and Evan?
Yes.
Henry?
Well, yeah, because that was
the couple on 30.
Yeah, because 30 was the
Ask
big
for a check, my dudes.
That was the big 3-team showdown on the aircraft carrier, where like they were all in it. They're all going to take the lead at
final task. Loved that final task. It was hard, but it was doable. And I can imagine. I mean, if that were me, that would probably still be haunting me 7 years down the road. So, I mean, but I like tasks like that. Or Kim and Penn's final task, I believe it was, I think, in the tennis stadium, where you had to pick like one of 3 of each of these things, and the other teams were coming in. And then, like, I like when that happens. It's where it's not just straightforward and roll a ball and this is who you get. And that's not Will and James's fault. That's just what their final task was. It just what, and I know that they would have nailed a huge memory task. So you get what you get and you don't get upset, I guess.
Well, a team that certainly is not upset
I get upset.
are Jag and Jazz, some of your fellow members in the winner's circle. I mean, give me
Yes.
your thoughts about them. And, you are an avowed Amazing Race super duper fan. Like, are they
I
up
am a
there with
super
some of the
duper.
best teams that we've seen in the show's history?
Um, yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, I think that I would be curious. Same thing with Ricky and Sacer. I'd be curious to see them race on a race that was more global. But I think that they're a very well-rounded team. Everything that they were asked to do, they did pretty well, unless I'm forgetting anything. Like some people who are very good at the mental stuff are not very good at the like dexterity challenges or the dancing or the rhythm or stuff like that. And some people who are just strong and fast aren't necessarily, they seem to be very well-rounded and good at almost everything. And so, yeah, I do. I think they earned it. I think it was a satisfying end to the season, even if it was a little bit anticlimactic getting there. But I do also think that Taylor and Kylan could have swept in and taken it, and I would have been equally satisfied that way.
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah,
had a
well,
great arc from beginning to end.
I want to hear your thoughts more about that arc because they obviously filled this very specific role. Only they and Alex and Kat were the romantic pairs on this race. Now, of
Mm-hmm.
course, we had cross romantic pairs in Tucker and Rubina at the time between two teams, but that was largely not really talked about. But yeah, what did you think about that? Because what's interesting is that when Taylor and Kylan spoke with me, Taylor talked about the fact that, she was a little surprised of the way the two of them were edited. That I think she felt there were some very sweet emotional moments between them that were not shown in favor of perhaps some different dynamics about their difference in communication styles. I mean, do you think they were edited to be like this season's quote unquote bickering couple stereotype?
Um, Maybe, yeah. And you're talking to the right. I am very well aware of the editing. Like when they don't do this anymore, but when our season aired, they put on YouTube like behind the scenes clips from each leg. So every week you'd get a handful of 2-3 minute clips on YouTube, and people would write me and go, "Oh my God, you actually had fun." And I would go, "Yeah, that's not what made the episode on the air. Like that was not, I guess, what made the best TV." And they started showing more fun as we went. So yes, I do think that that was the story that was going to be told about them a little bit. I don't think they were edited particularly poorly. I do, however, think in speaking with them that there were many more like tender moments and happy moments than maybe made the show, because maybe they already had that with somebody else in the show. And this is what, how it is. They take one thing and that's how they're going to make you. And you did all the things and you said all the things, but maybe they cut out what was right around that. And so it looks a little different than it was.
And
But
I'm
it's
a
what we
moron.
signed up for.
I'm a moron, and of course, I neglected to mention Izzy and Paige, who are, of course, a very romantic couple, a recently
Yes.
married couple. But I think I was more so speaking about, again, like the trope we've seen on The Amazing Race, which
Yeah.
is like the couple that is not necessarily on the same page. And yeah, I do agree that, like, well, listen, in the post Jonathan and Anna universe, I don't think anything could have necessarily compared in recent memory to what we experienced in terms of that trope. But, it is interesting that they highlighted moments like what happened at the Michi, even though like both Kylan and Taylor would say like, no, he was communicating to her in the proper way. And it's just a firm reminder, as you say, that editing is done with a purposeful motive behind it. It's like,
Yeah.
these are the roles that these people are going to play in the ultimate journey of the season. And what we choose to see is a reflection of what they are trying to communicate to us rather than sometimes like what they actually got out of the race proper with each other.
Yeah. I actually do like the way that they edited, especially talking, because you just brought up Jonathan and Anna, talking about Kylan's neurodivergency versus when when was Jonathan and Anna? Last season.
Last season, earlier this year.
Yeah.
It's been a long year.
So, yeah. So two people who, one was very aware of it when they ran the race, and one says they were not aware of it when they ran the race. So maybe it's about knowing what's going on in your head and then knowing how to handle it. But I loved the way that they talked a lot. about a lot of things, about Kylan's neurodivergence, about Izzy and Paige's, like the way that they highlighted their relationship and their love and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. I think that TV has come a long way, and I appreciate that certain things that would not have been highlighted many years ago are now at the forefront. They didn't take out the kissing and the love and the support, and I just thought that was great. And so, yeah, I understand what you're saying about Taylor and Kylan, but I do think they did do a service to them, especially when talking about Kylan's journey and their communication. Like, they did a good job of
Yeah.
explaining that.
I agree. I do think that I got a good slice of what their dynamic is like. I never necessarily felt that things were particularly heavy. I love the way that the two sort of jokingly talked with one another. It's clear, despite the seriousness of the situation, they still kept things light. And this was
Yeah.
the biggest unknown going into this season, right? Like, even devout Big Brother fans did not necessarily have a huge pulse on this being a thing before the season. And I do feel like we got some perspective into it. Now, maybe to Taylor's point, it was not a huge perspective that she necessarily wanted us to see, all of. But I do think that we got to see that these are two people who very clearly care about each other and had this like very life-changing relationship reaffirming experience. And not even relationship from a romantic perspective, because,
Yeah,
at this moment, they are both remaining friends, but the entire point of this exercise was to become friends again in the first place.
I agree. I think they were great. I do feel like, ugh, you know me, I like troll the Facebook and I look at everything. And I do think he
You're a
especially, well,
glutton for
both,
punishment, Brooke.
I on I am. But I will, like, both of them, I feel like got a really hard time online. Both of them and Izzy for some reason got a really hard time online. And all three of them are lovely people. I mean, I've spent more time with Kylan and Izzy, and they are just like amazing, wonderful humans. And Taylor wasn't here for this week. She had a really great opportunity, which she can tell you about herself. But the people need to realize that you see a very small snippet of a lot of things that happen, and things are put together in a way to make a story. So I am glad that overall everything has been so positive, but there have been little pockets of people who, for some reason, think that he was overly aggressive or she would. I don't understand that. I don't see it. I'm not going to pay it any more mind. I think that they're wonderful.
Well, you mentioned Izzy and Paige. I'd be remiss not to speak about them because they were technically a part of this finale, albeit like for 5 minutes
Yes.
of it. But I mean, they sort of make their own Amazing Race history, right? I believe, and people might correct me, that they are the first like lesbian team to make it the furthest in Amazing Race history. I think we had like Carol and
Really?
Brandy made it to 5th place. They were able to make it to 4th. And so while they did finish,
That's a
just outside.
very, very funny final mat. That there's some drama at that final
Oh
mat with
yeah, that
Carol
would have
and
been.
Brandy.
I mean, listen, if the U-turn drama hadn't been apparently resolved, there's a chance that Izzy and Paige could have pulled a Carol and Brandy and be like, "I just need to say something
No,
first."
they're so wonderful. Yes, if that's true, that's ugh, I really need more women to win this show. It's been too long. I
Yeah,
mean, 30 had one, 31 had one. I guess 32 didn't, and then 33 and 34 were it, right? And then
yeah, we're in a
35,
we're in a
6, 7, 8. It's all men, 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 men. We got to change
we're in a
that.
we're in a Vienna sausage fest right now, Brooke. But what's so interesting, I talk about this all the time, is like when the race started, there was a very typical demographic of people that were winning, which were like these strong, fit, young, athletic men. And with no offense to the recent teams who have won, I do not think they necessarily resemble the archetypes of the early 2000s winners, which is
Maybe Greg and John.
maybe Greg and John, but I think they are at least embodying different facets and different characteristics. Like, I
Hmm.
wouldn't say that Jag and Jess are comparable to Carson and Jack, the way that I would say Chris and Alex from season 2 are comparable to Rob and Brennan from season 1. I think that does help buoy things a little bit, that even if we are getting the same demographics winning season after season, at least the stories and teams feel a little different, even if the gender
That's
dynamics are
true.
the same.
That's true. Yeah, I wouldn't correct. I don't think any of the previous teams who all of the men who have been winning, you won't confuse them. They're all different. They all have their own stories. They all had their own journey. So yeah, I agree with that. That being said,
But yeah.
women.
Yes. Oh, no, I completely agree. And look, I think that we are in a streak right now. I would love to see it as well. I mean, I do feel like male female teams, yourself included, have statistically performed the best, represent the largest percentage of winners. So I'm not entirely sure what it's been. I mean, what's interesting as well is that I do feel like, particularly when you're looking at like Ricky and Cesar, Carson and Jack, Jag and Jas, there has been just this narrative of those three teams also being the strongest of the season from like a
Hmm.
skill-based perspective. So maybe it comes down to casting, but not in the way you would necessarily think.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, we made like fun jokes about Sacer, like whenever he had to do something, he's like, "Oh, I was a welder. Oh, I was a chef here. Oh, I did this." So I think that if you stay on the race long enough, there's a task for you. Like for me, I sang opera in college, and we got to do singing on a gondola in Venice, which was awesome. But for him, they were all for him. So, and the thing is, they plan the task before they pick the cast, and so maybe he just got super. I got to see them go again and see what happens. I'm curious.
Well, let's stay on Izzy and Paige here because
Mm-hmm.
luckily I will tease a little bit that we will get the chance to talk with them in a larger perspective very soon
Great.
here on RHAP. And I'm very excited to do so because, again, if you were a Big Brother fan and you sort of follow like the journey of Izzy, where if you watch the live feeds of Big Brother 25, Izzy was like one of the major forces in the house. She was a very intense emotional person, and she would be the first one to tell you that, but she was part of this sort of like triumvirate, like a hidden square perhaps, because you also had Jared Fields, who was, secretly related to Sari that was also controlling things behind the scenes, but they were running the house for the first like 6 weeks of the show, and they would keep us up until 4 in the morning because they decide to do something and then decide to do something else and then decide to go back to the first decision over and over again. But I feel like the edit that we got on the show was incredibly different because you have Sari being a part of that. Of course, they're going to give her the lion's share of content. You have Felicia Cannon, who is shot out of a cannon in terms of her personality. But Izzy really got the short end of the stick until everything really flipped on her. And so I am so happy for so many reasons we got an opportunity to see, honestly, more of who she really is. And I think you talk about a little bit of the pushback behind certain sectors of the fandom towards her. I really think it's as a result of the fact that she is so passionate and she feels so hard and she feels so verbally. Like she will let you know if she is upset with something. Look what happened at
As
that
she
U-turn
should.
board
Yeah.
in Croatia. She shouted that picture of Jag and Jas into the ground. And I think there's an adverse reaction from the community that comes from a number of things, certain biases that are, baked into that. But I really loved every second I had of Izzy and Paige on my screen. I think it also helps, Brooke, that like knowing the two of them, being friends with the two of them, it's this cool way to be able to look at the millions of people that watch this and be like, you get to now know them, granted in a certain perspective. We talk about the kaleidoscope of the edit, but you get to know them in a way that I've gotten to know them, that I've had the pleasure of getting to know them over the past few years.
And so I didn't watch the live. I've never watched the live feeds of Big Brother because,
Okay,
sleep.
maybe you're not as
But
much of a glutton for punishment as I thought.
I mean, if I will tell you, if the Amazing Race had live feeds, I would be watching it. It's just something about that show. But yeah, so I didn't know what you're saying about Izzy being such a big force on the live feeds. I only knew what I saw on the TV and then got to meet her at events and so on and so forth. And now we text and she's great and she's wonderful. And I'm excited that you'll get to speak with them again because they're just the two of them are just so fun. And I really, really think, at least for me, that's what I saw. I saw the fun. I saw that even when you get pissed off, and that doesn't even seem to be the word. Like there are people, many, many people who got much more pissed off. But I think that like they just had a way of grounding each other and coming back to it. And yeah, and thumbs up to Paige because like they know how to handle each other. Izzy gets upset. Paige says, take your time, be done with it, but take your time for 30 seconds and then move on. Be annoyed when the leg is over. And they just do so well complimenting each other that I'm glad that the race showed those moments because yeah, anyone can be edited in any way. They could have showed a whole lot more anger and a whole lot less love. And I'm glad that they showed a balance of it.
That is a really good point. And again, I've said this time and time again that, the edit through which we view The Amazing Race should not be an excuse for any of us to like therapize people's real life relationships based on this incredibly pressurized environment. But like, I do feel like we sincerely got a glance into the way the two of them not only interact with each other, but like very much are able to be there for the other and provide them what they need the most. Like I think to the can task in the leg, they were ultimately eliminated. And Izzy has revealed that there was a lot more personal stakes involved in that without getting into too much stuff than was even shown on the screen. And to have Paige just like assuage her fears or attempt to do so by like stopping her and saying like, this is meant to be hard. We are meant to feel this way. It means that we care. It means that we are still in this. So do not stop. Do not stop yourself because you are having this feeling. This is a natural course of action. Use this as not an impediment, but a fuel. And, then to also have Izzy be able to bring that enthusiasm out of Paige as well. Like, I just love the moment when after they were eliminated and they say, like, I'm going to be thinking about this for a long time. And, like, yes, that could come from the level of like, we were so close, though I don't know. We'll talk with Izzy and Paige. I don't know how much they thought they would be able to hang with Jag and Jess. They did have the home field advantage, but sometimes it doesn't work on the Amazing Race completely,
That's
Frank
true.
and Margarita. But I
True.
do think that the way they were able to use that, not necessarily a negative, like it should have been us way, but more of like this was such an affirming experience for us
Yeah.
both. I think is so heartening. I don't want to go full Jeff Probst and be like, the experience is the prize. But I think there is something, and you and I got to attend a really nice event on Friday, which was a screening
Yes.
at
Oh,
FIT of the finale and a conversation with co-creator Elise Doganieri, which is very rare. I feel like we very rarely
I
get
love her.
interviews.
Mhm.
I love her as well with the creatives behind that, but she talks a lot about that, right? She talks a lot about how almost a secondary prize to all of this is being able to walk away with a renewed or an ever changed perspective on your relationship with someone that's really important in your life. Brooke, you
Or in your
did not.
relationship with the world. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you see things that I went to places that I don't know that I ever would have gotten to go or see. I wouldn't even know that some of these places exist. Like if I knew I know Vietnam is there, but I don't know that I would have found little Ninh Binh, Vietnam, like rural town, beautiful.
Yeah.
Miserable day, but beautiful. Well, because they're sadistic. I will tell you, and I say this with love to the creators of The Amazing Race, please bring me back. But to have us ride on, it's not it's not paved roads or anything like that for 3,000 miles. It was like 40 miles. It wasn't 3,000 miles, but on a one gear bicycle in the horrible heat. I mean, that episode, somebody was medically evacuated out of our season and it wasn't me. I would have had my money on me and yet not me. Love him though. And like they'll do things that make it hard. If it was easy, it would be boring. It's difficult for a reason. But it's cool because you have a whole new relationship with things that like I never would have seen and I never would have gotten
No.
to do. And I mean, I'm probably the only season, maybe season 26, where it's not about having a different relationship with my partner because we didn't know each other.
Yeah, I actually want to go back to a point you just made because I do think some Amazing Race diehards feel like the tasks this season were too easy.
Oh,
Do you
I
feel?
mean,
I
yeah.
mean, do you feel like that's because I mean the other side of that is a little bit of like a tail wagging the dog of like, okay, were they easy objectively, or was it because we saw teams do things so easily
No,
and they're supernatural? That's why they ended up
no.
playing out the way they did.
I think they were easy objectively. I mean, some of these, the one with the piano and the square and the getting 10,
Euros, yeah.
was it euros? I mean, I guess it was euros. They were in Europe the entire time. Safe guess, euros.
Oh yeah, they were in Greece, and we know they're
In
not relying
Greece.
on that money anytime
Right.
soon.
That's true. So I mean, that's just too simple. Like that's just too, everyone was flying. Some of them, the one with the flowers and the dress, okay, that seemed harder. And I don't know why everyone didn't pull a Kyland and write every little note, and that was made for him. But I just remember talking about this season with Bryce and just kept being like, no, this should have been harder. They could have made this more difficult. I think the travel with the cancellation of trains and delays of this was probably the hardest part, and like the directions of all of it. I don't think it was the tasks this time.
Yeah, do you think there's a reason why that was the case? Like, was it a, hey, we're trying this concept with Big Brother, so we're gonna try to, give them a little bit of an easier shift of things? Was it a budget thing, maybe, or just? I mean, listen, we've been down this path before. I know Jess always loves to talk about the Amazing Race 24 as a great example of like super simple duper tasks, which like
Is that Connor and Dave's?
that was
Okay, got it.
that was the All-Star season, which
Okay.
was weird because as we're talking about, this was a season with returning players. Like you would think on paper you would make it harder, but
Yes.
whether it was due to constraints, route, or some other reason, they seem to really dumb down tasks.
I don't know. I mean, it's not an inexpensive show to film, so I don't. Do you know? Is the reason they stayed in Europe, was that a budget thing, or was that a
I
because
mean,
the world is open?
that's
I don't know.
it's gonna be tough to, I think, get an answer out of
Yeah,
anybody, truthfully. I mean,
you
we
should have
some
stood up on Friday and said to Elise, "Hey, curious, why?"
I would have had to wear like a mustache and hat for that just to
Yeah,
disguise I'm Mick Broom and I have a question about the budget that was appropriated for this season.
that's funny. I do think honestly, there's 1.5 million things that you could have done to make the task that they did harder. So I don't think it was about making it. It wouldn't have made them more expensive. I just think there are ways to
Hmm.
make tasks harder without actually adding any expense to it. So maybe they just, God love Enzo. I spoke to him last week, and he's seen 2 episodes of the show ever. The one that he was on and the finale of the one that he was on. So like maybe it was because some of these people didn't necessarily like know the show. They were trying to be a little bit more straightforward and make things a little bit easier.
Mm,
Being said, it's still very difficult. Like it's not an
yeah.
easy thing to do, and it looks much easier on TV than it is, and a lot to cut out. So I don't want to sit here and be like, back in my day, we had to climb a gazillion stairs, and which we did, by the way. But like, I don't want to be that person. It's like we walked 5 miles uphill both ways to school, and like whatever. Like kids these days have it easy, but I do think that some of these tasks were a little bit. They were a little easy.
Well, of course, we have to round out our discussion of the Final Four with our third place team in
Mm-hmm.
Joseph and Adam. Sucks that we got to them last, but it is almost reminiscent of that final leg where they were just like pretty much out of it from the beginning. Adam has a great moment where he's able to overcome his fear of heights, but it puts them behind, and then they unfortunately can't find a cab driver that, is able to stick with them for longer than 10 minutes. So
Yeah,
they're basically out of it from the beginning of the leg. But I think this is, again, a great arc of a personal journey for Adam in particular. Not to say that Joseph didn't have his own arc, but like clearly this was all about a guy who, from what he told me, refused to be on the race in the first place because of just
really.
just the fear that because of his diabetes, he was going to be like the hamper of his team, that he was going to drag his brother down with him. But if anything, Joseph lifted him up. He changed that elevation. And to see what Adam was able to fight through, during some of those very scary moments we encountered on the race, I know he has certainly gotten some very understandable commendations for his representation. He earned an award for what he was able to bring to the screen. So I think for many reasons, I am elated beyond belief that this man did ultimately decide to go on the race with Joseph.
Oh, I think the season would have been. I don't know who would have taken their place, so I can't say what it would have been, but we would have lost something by not having them on this season. I very much enjoyed watching them. I Adam is so stubborn and so, or came across it anyway, in some of these episodes where there were a couple things that confused me, but
Hmm.
that be like in the last episode. Well, 2 things. In the episode where they're doing the flowers, I think, and he like almost passes out and dies.
Yes.
And then they have another roadblock where they're like building that same one where they're building the
Yes.
tower, right? Dude, sit down. Like, why? I get you want to prove yourself, and I get all of that. And I don't think he had to. I think that their roadblock count was such that he didn't have to do.
I mean, I
Am I
think part of
wrong?
part of it was I think they did. I believe they went into the leg it being 6-4 with Joseph
Okay.
doing 6 and Adam doing 4. So I think one of the reasons we'll get a chance to hopefully talk with them as well. But I believe one of the
Hmm.
reasons why they said, at least in the moment, why they did it was to help balance things out to make it
Okay.
6-6 in case we got any sort of like final roadblock scenario.
Well, that's how Scott ended up bungee jumping. But it was a great moment, and I'm jealous, and I wanted to do it. And he says he will do it again if he has to, which he might. But the other moment that bugs me is in the finale. You can very clearly hear, unless it's edited and it wasn't real, you can very clearly hear, like when they're by Sesame Street, you can hear Joseph say to the cab driver, like, "Stay if you can, and if you can't," and then it trails off. What? are you doing, my
But
dude?
this is the
If you speak
Joseph.
to them, please ask them, had
Yes.
they paid their cab driver at that point? Because do not pay your cab driver then, because they'll wait for you. It was a long trip from JFK and then through the city. Like either the cab driver drove away from a very nice fare or they had paid. And then I'm thinking, no. So find out if they paid, because I'm curious to know. I wouldn't have paid yet.
That is a great point, but you know what this is? This is the Joseph at the U-turn vote who was like, I can't vote between Jag and Jazz and Taylor and Kyle and Adam. You take it. I like this guy is so nice. He's a good guy, as his brother will tell him. I would absolutely feel like his altruism may have gotten them third place, to your point. If he's like, okay, I want you to stay here, but like you can go if you really need to.
Yes,
it's okay.
no, don't. You're staying. Please stay. Thank you. And you'll get a nice big tip out of it. And where are you going? It's like an early morning in New York City. It was not particularly crowded at the time that they started. And so, yeah, I think that was probably their biggest mistake. Also, I noticed when they were going to Queens on the finale, 2 teams took the Midtown Tunnel and 1 team took the 59th Street Bridge. And the team that took the 59th Street Bridge was Joseph and Adam. And I'm curious how much it took them out of the way. I have not looked at where the studio was in Queens, but to get from where they were up to 59th Street as opposed to 30 something, to 34th Street, 36th Street for the tunnel, definitely cost some time.
That's interesting because they finished at FIT, right, which is in the 20s. So you would imagine they
Correct.
just book it right across and go in the tunnel. But for some reason, when they found a cab driver, they decided, let's go 30 blocks north and then east.
Now, I don't know where in Queens exactly the studio was, so maybe it was closer to the exit of 59th Street Bridge, but I guess I can look it up and figure it out later. But I do think that's like an advantage Izzy and Paige would have had, because if they know the city, which they do, they could have been like I would have been like, absolutely no, this way, please. Like, this is the better thing to take. And sometimes cab drivers don't want to, like, there's a toll in one place and not another place. And so they'll take you a certain way.
Brooke, I'm curious because Jess brought this up on the recap that she would have loved if this leg actually did away with the cab drivers, much to Adam and Joseph's delight, that instead they had to navigate through like buses and subways. Would you have preferred that as a New York resident?
I love the buses in New York. I love taking the bus. Like where I live in a spot where there are buses and subways like right here. I'm in a great location for all of that. So I love public transportation. The problem, I think, would have been when we were in Brazil, we had the option to take a subway or a cab, and they weren't allowed to film on the metro. So I'm wondering what the filming situation would have been in New York City on a subway.
Viral videos on the subway.
They do. And so maybe it would be fine. It would be a little bit difficult. You probably have to take a cab to Queens. You do not have to take a cab to Yankee Stadium. That's for sure. There's a train that takes you right there. And that would have been interesting because there's a local and a, oh my God, like a direct and a local express. Thank you. Hi, I'm a New Yorker, I swear. So depending on what train people got on, that would have been an option for, catch-ups. But yeah, I think it would have been cool to see at least some public transportation in the leg, because for the part where you're going, to Sesame Street, to Garment District, like, so if you allowed people to take a subway for that part and some people took a cab because they're like, I don't really know and I don't want to get confused, then I think the order may have been shaken up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Elise relayed this story about the very first thing they did on The Amazing Race in general, which happened in New York City at Bethesda Fountain in Central Park. And she talked about sort of the havoc that emerged from the minute Phil said go. And everyone behind the camera kind of took a pause, like, oh my God, we did it. And didn't realize that the players had taken off, and all of the planes, trains, and automobiles that they had used to get to the airport to go to their first destination of Namibia. And I feel like it's very fun to incorporate that. It feels it's a mad world of like, take whichever transport you want to. I mean, we saw it a smidge, unfortunately, due to the circumstances of what Jag and Jazz experienced in Hungary in terms of their, they didn't want to take taxis, so they took the bus instead. They took public transit. I think it could be fun to provide a little bit more freedom in that. I know that maybe they fear a team falling out of it too much due to circumstances out of their control, but again, you could argue that some of those taxi circumstances might have occurred due to things that were out of the racer's control.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I do think it is kind of cool when you have the opportunity to sort of take any transportation you want. And I think it makes for a more interesting episode. Yeah, I think that would have been pretty cool in New York City, actually, because there are so many ways to get from A to B, whether it's a bus or a subway or your feet, or you know what I mean? Like some of
Yeah.
these people are fast. And when you start getting into like rush hour, it's faster to jog it out than it is to sit in a car half the
Yeah, I
time.
mean, honestly, one of the hardest tasks they may have experienced on that leg was actually pushing the carts with the rolls of fabric on it because
Okay, I have one more great for Joseph and Adam.
please.
Dudes, why did you keep your carts together like it was one big cart with
Yeah, they
half of a
conjoined
roll
it.
on one? What? That's not going to make you move faster, but I do like them very, very much. And so I won't be too hard on them. But and also I think Jag and Jazz should have had to go back and get a new roll of fabric because you don't
Mm.
want to deliver ratty, dirty, ripped fabric to the FIT students. But I didn't make the show, so who am I to say?
I mean, honestly, the hardest thing though, I mean, we've both experienced like the forwardness that people have when they're navigating the streets, you know, even if it's a red light, like they're like, I don't care, they'll stop for me. So like
Yeah.
having to get through those people in a very busy part of Manhattan seemed like the most difficult thing they probably faced the entirety of that day.
I will say New Yorkers do not care. Everyone's in their own world. And honestly, like in this day and age, I'm like a nice person, but people who are on their phone who are not looking and are walking on the street and they're gonna walk right into me, I will just stand still. And like as they get close and they're gonna run into me, I'm gonna be like, look up. Like I don't know how more people don't get hit by cars and die in New York City because people are just so engrossed in their phone and they're not looking up. People have run into me because I've allowed it. But pay attention to the world around you, people. But I do think that we get a little bit of a bad rap because we are like, if anyone needs help, we're helpful people. Like
Yeah.
ask someone for directions, say, please, 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 I'm coming through. People will move as long as they are paying attention to what's going on around them. And if they're not, run them over. I'm just saying.
For
You
$1
got
million.
places to be and millions to win. Exactly.
A few casualties can be taken down in the pursuit of $1 million. Something that I often go back to when I think about finales, talk about finales, is one of, I'll say without sucking kneecaps too much, I think one of the low-key, most astute moves that was made in a finale, which was what you and Scott did, when you landed in Chicago, checking your bags and just not picking them up. Are
Okay,
you
so
but please, go ahead.
okay, so I knew I tried out for the race several times and I was like one backpack, which I couldn't do because I didn't know who my partner would be. I wanted to give all of my money to the cab driver at the end. Should I make it that far?
Jag and Jazz did that.
I know. And then also, I was never taking my bag on the last leg of the race. Like people have been checking their bags a long time. And we were in South Korea and we were flying to Chicago. And what's interesting is our thing didn't say fly to your final destination city. It said fly to Chicago, Illinois. And I had already checked my bag and I went to the producer, was like, is that her final destination or is my bag gone for good? Because I don't know. And they're like, no, that's where we're ending. So anyway, we walked to the plane and I had already put a little note on my backpack, like where you write your information, being like, I will be picking this up. Please give it to whatever it was, Thai Airways, I think it was. Like, I'll get it when I get it. Thank you. And we let everyone else get on the plane first, and then we gate checked our bags because I was like, I'm not running with this. Let's get real. Kept a little fanny pack. That was it. We actually tried in South Korea to find a tiny, tiny little backpack at like the airport store so that we could just keep one little thing with everything we needed and I wouldn't have had to carry anything, but we couldn't find one. So we gate checked our bags and Scott's like, I don't want to, we landed and Scott's like, I'm just going to grab my bag. And I'm like, no, what do you do? Why? And he's like, well, what if it's gone and someone takes it? And I was like, you're going to win $1 million today. Relax. And he actually probably would have grabbed it, but for production was like, you're not allowed to go to bag check. Like we're starting. And I think he's so glad. I think it was just like a momentary moment of like, what if I need something that's in there? Or what if whatever. We had, I think, everything we needed and it turned out just fine. But I went to open the trunk and we got to Chicago and I was like, oh, wait, I don't need that. Boop.
Forced
and
to have
we
it,
were
yeah.
off. Yeah.
So are you surprised that more teams have not done that? Do you know of other teams that have done that since 29?
Since 29, I'm sure there have been. I can't off the top of my head pick any, but I'm surprised that not everybody does that. Why on earth would you carry an extra 20, 25 pounds on you? Unless, I mean, some people don't think that that's heavy. And so maybe they just don't. Kylan wore his backpack on every task that he did. And I don't think he ever took it off. But for him, that was easy, and it probably just sort of became an extension of him. So for me, I was never carrying that backpack.
Brooke, what was your favorite episode this season? Could you
Oh, good
segment it down?
question. Oh my gosh. I remember, oh God, I need my notes. I never have, this is the first time I'm without notes.
You checked
Shoot,
him at the
because I
you checked him at
remember
the
like,
gate.
right? I remember like halfway through being like, this was an amazing episode. And now for the life of me, it's going to bother me on what happened in the episode. There were just a lot of tasks with it. At one point, they had to build that pontoon. They had to go back out of the thing. They had
Oh,
to come back
yes.
in the thing.
That
I
was
just
the
feel like there were so many things that were done that episode that I was like, yes, this is Amazing Race. And they were like active route markers instead of just detour roadblock at the end.
Yeah, you're
Do you
thinking
know
of
which one I was talking about?
the Romania episode. This is the Natalie and Stephanie episode, right? Where they had to herd the sheep, and then they built the pontoon, and then they built the mud bricks.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I liked that episode a lot. I think a lot was going on. I love tasks with animals. I just think, and we heard some behind the scenes footage. We did a chat with Taylor and Kylan about some of the things that went on with the sheep and all of like the cool things that happened beyond. And it was because places were changing. Izzy and Paige were stuck there last, but they don't mind being last because then it's quiet. And then they jump forward and so on and so forth. I thought that was a genuinely good, exciting change of leaders episode.
I would agree with that. I think that actually there was like a chunk in the middle there where you have that Romania leg, then you have the second Romania leg, which is the Joseph and Adam non-elimination episode that has all the drama around that. And then you have the Greece episode, which is my favorite episode of the season. And that is probably the strongest the season is. You know, not to say that again, like once Tucker were eliminated, everything went to shit. But I do
Oh,
feel
so the
like
Greece is the U-turn episode you're
yeah,
talking about.
Greece is the U-turn vote in
Yeah.
the Tucker and Eric elimination. That's probably my favorite episode of the season. I think the U-turn vote, well, maybe not Amazing Racy, was maybe like the climax of the season with just, I think what a lot of people expected this season to be, that was represented there, where a lot of these, you know,
Yeah.
past rivalries and friendships came to bubble to the surface. We have a lot of strategy. We have a lot of relationships affected in the moment as well. A very tense vote that ends in a three-way tie, essentially. So, and then that leading into the elimination of a frontrunner as well. Like, I think that was probably the best episode out of all of them. But I think they were on a good streak. And then maybe towards the end, things take a dip just a little bit. But I do think that, as I mentioned before, I think it definitely superseded expectations. You know, early on, I think like the first 4 episodes, it took a little while to take off just because of the train stuff. You know, we basically had like a group of 4 teams that were consistently trading places to avoid being last place every single episode. But once we got everyone together in Croatia, I feel like the season definitely stepped up from there.
I did like Turner and Megan. I actually wish I'd seen more of them, especially now meeting them and chatting with them and knowing a little bit more about them. I actually think that they would have been great TV if they lasted longer. Sorry. But I do think you're right. Like at the beginning, I was just sort of like, okay, keep an open mind. It's going to get better. It's going to be good. And then it really, really got better. I stopped thinking, oh, they're big brother teams or, oh, they had a relationship. But I also think they started putting much less of an emphasis on that train wreck alliance. And I think that actually made the season a lot better too.
What do you think are the returning chances of some of the people in this cast? Now, definitely I want to get your thoughts on the 40 of it all, because I know you certainly have perhaps some self-serving ideas as to what you want 40 to be. But even irrespective of that, you know, in general for a future Amazing Race season, who do you think will come back? Who do you think should come back?
I mean, I think any of the top 4 teams could be asked back. I think that it would be interesting to see any of them in a race that was more global as opposed to just European. But I would love to see back Hannah and Simone. I actually think that they didn't get to stretch their wings as much as I think that they could have. They're so smart. And when it came to like the dancing and stuff, they were so good. But I just, that's one where I cried when they were out. Hannah gets the award for best cheerleader ever, maybe on The Amazing Race, as Simone was struggling with that.
And we've had literal cheerleaders on The Amazing Race.
Yes. No, I still think Hannah wins. But I think that I would really enjoy seeing them again, because I think that there's a competitive spirit that wasn't necessarily shown as much at the forefront. And I just liked watching them with each other. I just thought they were so good to each other and good to everyone else. But I do think in a regular Amazing Race season where it was a bit more cutthroat, I still think that they would do really well.
Yeah, I would probably go with, and I would love to talk to you more about, again, possible themes for future returning seasons. If they want to do like an unfinished business part two, there's a few teams that fall into that category for me. I think both Natalie and Stephanie, and especially Tucker and Eric, where it's this narrative, right, of like,
Tucker and Eric for sure.
you were doing really well, and then this one, because that was also the theme of unfinished business was really widespread, right? For some, it was like, well, this one thing happened to you, and as a result, you went home. Some of them, it was like, well, if you didn't screw up this one task, you would have gone. And so I do feel like
if you hadn't stopped to pee, you probably
that's Keisha and Jen. So I do feel like there is a lot of like good narrative there for both of those teams, and also Izzy and Paige as well. I feel
totally.
like there's a big thing to like, you were right there, you were almost at the finale. That has a lot of appeal to it. And I also think with Izzy and Paige having more confidence in themselves now, knowing that they could sort of like fight it out with some of the biggest teams of this season, that could be a lot of fun to see them have be a little bigger for their britches the second time
I'd
around.
watch them again for sure. I think that's the same kind of fourth place is kind of a cool thing. I'm not pitching this, but fourth place is kind of a cool thing. Like Matt and Redmond from my season, who were fourth, were consistently great, and just it was not their day. They would make great TV. I would watch them again. But I do think it's kind of funny. There was a stretch of time where fourth place just turned into like the strong all male team, like just falling short at fourth place. It's happened a lot, which I'm sure you know stats better than I do. But I do think you'd probably get a lot of those if you just did like people who just missed out on the finale. But I have my own personal pitches that I want to. It's so funny. The other day when Elise was there, I was well behaved. So many people. I mean, one in particular, and I won't name her name because maybe she wants to like not. She was just like, "So, am I going to get to do this again?" And I was like, wow, okay, cool. But you gotta good for you because closed mouths don't get fed. So
I was going to say, you got to shoot your shot. I talked about the number of times that Elise really being in a public facing setting, you can count on one hand. So like, this might be the last time you're able to get FaceTime with her before that happens.
That's true. She's so nice though. She did sign my book, See You in Season ... And I was like, well, that's interesting, but we kind of asked her to. So just to mess with Ricky and Caesar.
Well, okay, well, let's underline this because you have been rather public about this. I feel like you have talked about this on the podcast. I feel like Will and James have talked about it on their podcast, that you want Amazing Race. While Amazing Race did an echo of Big Brother this season, you want season 4 to be an echo of Survivor. You want Amazing Race winners at war. I mean, how self-serving is this? Do you think this would work 100%. As a theme in general?
I think it'd be great. No, I mean, even if I'd never been on the show, I love watching when like winners at war on Survivor. Like that's just fun. And I just think it's very cool to see like all the people who've actually won it, because look, some of the winners were just like strong buff dudes and they dominated the whole time. Some of the winners were more artistic and less strong right here physically. And then you have like the Beekman boys, or like there's just so many people. And the cool part is the people who won. I mean, I've spoken to Chip and Kim about this. Chip would be back in a they would be back in a heartbeat. Yeah. But like now they're in their 60s. So it's a different race for them. So I think it'd be cool. I mean, like Brendan, like Rob and Brendan, they were 20s then. And so now they're
in their 40s. Yeah.
They're in the same age as I am, even though I ran it 10 years. I guess it must have been more than 10 years after them, but we're now the same age. And so it's cool to see people at like what they're doing now, how they would run it now, how they've changed now, like the difference in everybody. Yeah, I do think winners would be fantastic television.
That's the thing, is I think one of the only downsides would be that we saw maybe a little bit in Winners at War was like, okay, we want to see obviously a lot of these old school winners back, people we haven't seen on our screens in a long time. Like, can they still keep up alongside, the younger people? But as you mentioned, some of these people won in their early 20s, which puts them up alongside certainly some of the people that have won in recent years. So it might be more of an even playing ground than you might think.
Because when you think about it, like we were one of the older winners of the race in our 30s. So it's not like people in their 50s were routinely winning and now they're going to be in their 70s. But even Chip and Kim, when we were talking with Chip for a long time, Kim was at the gym. Like they're in shape And, 60 is not what it used to be. 40 is definitely not what it used to be. And I do think that people who are a little bit older have an advantage on the race because they have. I mean, I used to have to read a map. I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college because, like, nobody did. And I sound so old, but like, there are advantages that today everybody just relies on the computer in their hand and, like, they don't think about what else is going on around them. So I do think it would be really, really cool. So could you just reach out to CBS and make it happen? Thank you.
I was gonna say, are you talking like the royal you? Like I'm
No,
no horse in
you
this race.
specifically. What
You
if I offered you a cut of my winnings? Am I allowed to do that? I don't know.
Only on a very public setting like a podcast. That way,
Okay.
again, royal you, maybe everyone who's listening will get a cut. That's what you're offering.
Yes.
All right,
A
well,
cut
Brooke,
might just be a smile. I might not win anything.
well, before we work more on your under the table dealings, any other things you
Yes.
want to say about the Amazing Race 38 in general, the finale of the season overall?
I am just happy that the race is still happening. I am sad we're not going to have one in the spring, but I'm so thrilled that a show that I genuinely, and it's not because I was on it, like, I was the biggest fan of the show before I even got the opportunity to do it. It's just good, wholesome, solid, different television. Like, things are just being remade and redone. And this is just, it's been what it is for such a long time, and I just hope it goes on forever. The show is great, the creators are great, they're all still so kind, and I look forward to seeing them again in person shortly.
There we go. Oh, yeah, exactly. I'll see you at the starting line.
Also, I would like to say, if first of all, your podcast is so great. You and Jess are just so
Thank
wonderful
you.
and so fun, and I love it. And thank you for having me on this. We will also, it will be out there, talking to some of the teams after the finale aired. We did a little reunion like we did last year, and so
Oh,
that will be coming out this week. So please, if you get a chance, check out Bryce's YouTube page because we will have it up this week, I believe. And it was a really good time. There was some spicy behind the scenes footage,
ooh.
some funky eating challenge that happened, and
Wait, like during the reunion, or they meant it got edited out?
no, during the reunion, someone
Interesting.
jumped out of an airplane and someone was supposed to do the eating challenge. There was no eating challenge, and so we made our own.
I love this. Okay, fantastic tease, a little taste, if you will, of what's to
Good
come with
times.
that reunion. Do you and Bryce have any plans at the moment of doing any sort of your Amazing Race rewatch podcast now that we're in the long
Oh
off
my
season?
God. Yes. And I thank you so much to everybody who watches. And we've gotten so many suggestions of seasons to do. And I know most of them pretty well. And I'm like, wait, which one is that? Like, I had to go back and look. But yes, we will be doing a winter rewatch, season to be determined. I'm still putting together a short list for Bryce without giving him too much information. And then he is sort of hell bent on doing a summer rewatch of season 29. And
Okay.
if Scott already wants to take my place, he's like, if Brooke doesn't want to do it with you, I will. And yeah, maybe. I think it could be fun. I think we could get a whole bunch of people from that cast to come on and watch episodes with us and talk about it. And I think it could be a good time. But I think my PTSD might, like, come to the surface. So we'll see.
We'll see. You have a little while to think it over, luckily. But in the meantime, another rewatch coming in the winter. And
Yes.
of course,
Thank you.
we are certainly not done yet talking The Amazing Race 38. Like I said, we have at least a couple of podcasts in the books talking with some of these teams
Okay.
that were eliminated. Won't ask them to be doing any eating challenges, but we will be eating, getting the chance to listen to them. So make sure you do not miss a second of it. We know AmazingRace.com. Brooke, this was such a great time.
Would
Thank
you be
you.
willing to come on to our rewatch and talk a
Of
little bit
course.
about this show? Okay, great. Then
You-
yay, well, you'll be there. It'll be fun.
Give me a time, give me a place. I'll show up with bells on. Not literally. I don't do costumes
You
when
might.
the Amazing Race season's over.
Oh no.
Oh my god. Well,
Okay. Well, yes. Sorry, you go.
no, please. I was just gonna thank
I was just
everybody
going to
so
say
much.
thank you. I had so much fun. This is so great. I love talking this show, obviously. And you're always such a joy to talk to. And it's fun because you give me a run for my money because I think I know everything about this show. And then I'm like, wait, he knows a whole lot more. So
Yeah, but that
thank
just
you.
proves you have more of a life than I do, Brooke. So take that in stride. And thank you all so much for taking the time to listen. Not only this, but all of these like miscellaneous interview podcasts I've been doing this season. It's been a great time getting to check in with, especially a lot of people from the Big Brother community who
Mhm.
are either new to the race or hadn't watched it in a while. I think a lot of them are really brought back into the fold as a result of this season. And hopefully that continues to stick through next fall. So again, this has been an immensely enjoyable time. Thank you all again so much
Thank
for your
you.
support all season long. More certainly to come on the Amazing Race 38 front. But until then, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.